She was dismissed the moment she stepped into the will reading. A navy linen dress, a worn cardigan and quiet flats. Just enough to draw sneers across a room of polished airs, their smiles too sharp to be genuine. A man in a silver tie was the first to speak, half laughing, half mocking. "Is that the housekeeper?" A young black woman tilted her head and whispered to her companion, probably some desperate ex-lover chasing a handout. Aaliyah Johnson stood at the back of the room. She didn't respond, didn't flinch, just adjusted the strap of the canvas bag in her hand. To them she was a shadow, an outsider who had wandered into a space reserved for blood, legacy and privilege. But they were wrong, because the woman they just humiliated was the legal wife of the man they were all here to inherit from. And today's reading of the will was a test she helped orchestrate. The Caldwell estate sprawled across a misty ridge, its stone facade and wrought iron gates a fortress of wealth. Inside, the grand hall smelled of old money, cedarwood, leather, and the faint sweetness of lilies in vases worth more than most people's homes. Crystal chandeliers gleamed like frozen stars, catching the April light and scattering it across a crowd of 40 relatives, investors, and advisors, each dressed to claim their share of Marcus Caldwell's empire. Tailored suits, silk gowns, and diamonds that flashed with every gesture. They mingled, sipping Prosecco, their sympathies as practiced as their smirks. Aaliyah slipped in quietly, her flat silent on the polished marble. Her dress was simple, flowing, the navy fabric softened by years of wear. Her cardigan, a faded teal, hung slightly askew. Her coiled hair was swept into a neat bun, a few strands framing a face that carried quiet strength. High cheekbones, deep brown eyes that missed nothing, and lips that stayed shut when others would have retorted. At 36, Aaliyah was striking in a way that didn't demand attention but held it, like a rhythm you couldn't ignore. The man in the silver tie, Victor Caldwell, Marcus's distant cousin, leaned against a walnut table, his cufflinks glinting as he sneered. "Who let the staff in?" His voice carried, intentional, pulling chuckles from a group of cousins nearby. A woman in a sapphire dress, Vanessa, Victor's sister, tossed her hair and added, "Maybe she's here to polish the will before it's read." More laughter, crisp and cutting like ice cracking. Across the room, a young black woman, Nia, a niece with a tech startup and a massive Instagram following, nudged her friend Kayla, a former assistant to Marcus's CFO. "Bet she's one of his pity projects," Nia whispered, loud enough for Aaliyah to hear. Or a mistress he forgot to mention. Look at her bag, like she's carrying leftovers. Kayla giggled, snapping a quick photo with her phone. "This is going on my story. Caldwell will fail." Nia's fingers danced across her screen, her smirk widening as she typed a caption for the photo of Aaliyah. Spotted Marcus's charity case crashing the will reading. "Think second-hand style gets her $1 billion, she said aloud, ensuring Aaliyah caught every word. The crowd around them laughed, some pulling out phones to like and share the post, which was already spreading online. Comments poured in, strangers labelling Aaliyah a nobody, a gold digger, their words a virtual avalanche echoing the room's scorn. Aaliyah stood still, her brown eyes catching the glow of Nia's screen, but she didn't speak. Her silence seemed to stoke their amusement, as if her calm was a challenge they had to shatter. Kayla leaned in, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Poor thing doesn't even know she's viral now." The laughter grew, a chorus of cruelty that painted Aaliyah as less than human, her dignity a target for their entertainment. Aaliyah's fingers tightened briefly on her canvas bag, a simple thing stitched with care, no designer label in sight. She didn't look at Nia or Kayla, didn't acknowledge Victor's jab or Vanessa's quip. She stood poised, her breathing steady, her gaze fixed on the empty chair at the front where the lawyer would sit. To them, her silence was weakness, a sign she didn't belong. They couldn't see the resolve beneath it, the way her stillness commanded the room without effort. The crowd grew louder as more arrived. A former investor, Leonard Brooks, in a charcoal suit muttered to his wife. Marcus always had strays trailing him. This one's got no place here. His wife, adorned with sapphires, nodded, her eyes scanning Aaliyah's outfit. "No refinement," she said, her voice a stage whisper. She's tarnishing the family's name just standing there. A distant cousin, Derek, in a suede jacket, called out, "Hey love, the kitchen's that way." He pointed toward a side door, grinning as his friend slapped his shoulder. A woman in diamonds, Evelyn, an aunt twice removed, tisked loudly. Someone should usher her out before the lawyer arrives. It's disrespectful to Marcus's legacy. Vanessa, her sapphire dress swishing, crossed the room toward Aaliyah, her heels clicking like a metronome. She stopped inches away, looming over Aaliyah's smaller frame, her perfume sharp and overwhelming. "You're in the wrong place, sweetheart," she said, her voice carrying to every corner. She reached out, flicking Aaliyah's cardigan as if it were debris, her nails grazing the fabric with calculated contempt. "This isn't a thrift shop. Why don't you leave before you make a bigger fool of yourself?" The crowd watched, some smirking, others whispering, none intervening. Aaliyah's hands stayed steady on her bag, but Vanessa's intrusion felt like a violation, her proximity a deliberate power play. A cousin nearby muttered, "She's got guts staying here." The room's approval of Vanessa's aggression was tangible, their silence complicit in Aaliyah's humiliation. Aaliyah didn't move. Her eyes flicked briefly to the security camera in the corner, its red light pulsing steadily. She knew it was live, streaming to a private server only 2 people could access. One was her, the other wasn't here. Not yet. As the lawyer prepared to read, Derek slipped behind Aaliyah, his suede jacket brushing the wall as he whispered to his friends, "Check this out." He grabbed a cocktail napkin from a nearby table, scrawled charity case in marker, and tucked it into the strap of Aaliyah's bag when she wasn't looking. The room noticed, snickers spreading like sparks as people pointed at the note, its bold letters a brand on Aaliyah's back. Nia snapped another photo, her laughter barely contained while Kayla whispered, "She's a total joke now." Aaliyah stood, unaware, her focus on the lawyer, but the crowd's glee was palpable, their amusement a blade twisted in her dignity. Derek leaned back, grinning, as Evelyn muttered, "She deserves it for showing up like that." The prank wasn't just cruel, it was a performance, designed to make Aaliyah a fool for daring to stand among them. The lawyer, William Harper, entered at 10 a.m., his navy suit sharp, his briefcase heavy with secrets. He was older, late 50s, with a face etched by years of navigating fortunes and disputes. The room quieted as he set his briefcase on the table, opened it, and pulled out a sealed envelope. No theatrics, no preamble. He adjusted his glasses and scanned the crowd, his gaze lingering on Aaliyah for a fleeting moment, long enough to unsettle Victor, who frowned and whispered to Vanessa, "What's that look for?" Leonard Brooks stood, his charcoal suit creasing as he pointed at Aaliyah, his voice thundering like a prosecutor's. "This woman's a fraud," he declared, his finger shaking with indignation. "Marcus would never let someone like her near his estate. She's here to swindle us, plain and simple." The room buzzed with agreement, heads nodding, eyes narrowing at Aaliyah as if she were a thief caught in the act. His wife, her sapphires gleaming, added, "She's probably got a fake ID in that tattered bag." The accusation hung heavy, painting Aaliyah as a criminal, her presence an affront they couldn't stomach. Aaliyah's gaze remained steady, but the weight of their judgment pressed down, each word a lash meant to strip her bare. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their outrage a show for each other, Aaliyah's silence only fueling their need to tear her apart. Harper cleared his throat. "We're here to read the last will and testament of Marcus James Caldwell, executed 3 years ago and verified as authentic." Murmurs rippled through the room. 3 years? Marcus had vanished only 6 months ago, his yacht lost in the Atlantic. No wreckage, no body, just a void that fueled headlines and ambition. Most assumed he'd died, most hoped. Victor adjusted his silver tie, his smirk returning. "Let's get to it then. Who gets the Empire?" Nia leaned forward, her nails tapping her phone, already planning her victory post. Leonard crossed his arms, muttering about stock splits. Evelyn clutched her diamonds, whispering to Derek about the villa in Capri. Aaliyah stayed still, her bag now resting at her feet. She watched Harper's hands as he broke the seal, the crack of wax sharp in the hushed room. The crowd leaned in, their breaths shallow, their eyes ravenous. This was it, The moment they'd schemed for, flown across oceans for, Marcus's empire, tech patents, real estate, a fintech firm worth $85 billion was up for grabs, or so they thought. Harper unfolded the paper, his voice calm but deliberate, each word a pebble dropped into still water. I, Marcus James Caldwell, being of sound mind, declare this my final will. To my family, colleagues and associates I leave nothing but this truth. Wealth reveals character, not value. The room froze. Victor's smile wavered. Nia's phone slipped an inch in her hand. Leonard's jaw clenched, his wife's sapphires suddenly heavy. Nothing? It had to be a mistake, Harper continued, unfazed. All my assets, company shares, properties, accounts and intellectual rights are bequeathed to one person. The one who stood by me for love, not gain. The one who never asked my worth, never sought my name for status. My wife, Alia. Gasp ripped through the room, raw and jagged. Heads whipped around, searching for a face to match the name. Victor barked a laugh, short and incredulous. Wife? Marcus wasn't married. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth, her sapphire nails stark against her paling skin. Nia's eyes narrowed, darting to Kayla, who mouthed, What the hell? Leonard stood, his chair scraping the floor. This is nonsense. Marcus never mentioned a wife. It's a forgery. Evelyn clutched Derek's arm, her voice shrill. She's not here, is she? Some schemer we've never met, stealing our legacy? Harper raised a hand, silencing them. The will is legal, signed and notarized. Supporting documents, marriage certificate, photographs, personal letters are available for verification. He reached into his briefcase, pulling out a folder. He opened it, revealing a photograph. Marcus, younger, grinning, his arm around Aaliyah in a simple cream dress, standing outside a courthouse. The date on the back read 7 years ago. The room erupted. Victor slammed a fist on the table. This is madness. Who is she? Nia stood, her phone forgotten, shouting, Where's this Aaliyah? Show her! Derek sneered. Probably some hustler hiding in Capri. Vanessa's voice cut through, venomous. If she's real, why isn't she here? Too embarrassed to show her face? Aaliyah stepped forward. The movement was quiet, purposeful, like a breeze turning into a gust. Her flats made no sound, but every eye followed her as she crossed the room. Her cardigan swayed slightly, her navy dress catching the light. She stopped beside Harper, her posture straight, her face serene. The canvas bag hung from her shoulder, unpretentious, like her. The silence was deafening. Victor's mouth opened, then closed, his silver tie suddenly gaudy. Nia's face flushed, her earlier photo burning a hole in her phone. Leonard sank back into his chair, his wife's sapphires dull now. Evelyn's diamonds seemed to choke her, her hand frozen mid-gesture. Harper nodded to Aaliyah, a faint respect in his eyes. Mrs. Caldwell, he said, handing her the folder. She took it without a tremor, her fingers steady as she opened it, glancing at the photograph, her lips curving slightly as if recalling the day it was taken. Then she closed the folder and faced the room. I didn't come for the money, she said, her voice clear, resonant, like a note through mist. I came to see who you were, who among you cared for Marcus as a man, not a fortune, who'd honour him, not his wealth. She paused, her brown eyes sweeping the crowd, holding each one without effort. You showed me exactly who you are. Victor found his voice shaky but defiant. You're saying you're his wife? You? He gestured at her dress, her cardigan, his laugh forced. Marcus Caldwell married this? No offence, but you look like you shop at second-hand stores. Aaliyah didn't blink. I do, she said simply. Marcus didn't care. He loved me for me, not for what I wore or owned. Can any of you say the same? Nia snorted, folding her arms. Nice performance, but I'm not convinced. If you're his wife, where's the proof? A photo's not enough. Anyone can fake that. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, emboldening the crowd. Leonard nodded, his voice loud again. She's right. We need more. Witnesses, records, something solid. And Harper opened his briefcase again, pulling out a stack of documents. Marriage license dated 7 years ago, signed by both parties and 2 witnesses, a nurse named Rachel Morgan and a librarian, James Carter. Personal letters from Marcus to Aaliyah, handwritten, verified by forensic analysis. Bank records showing joint accounts. kept private at Marcus's request. He paused, pulling out a small USB drive. Video footage from their wedding. He inserted the drive into a laptop and a screen on the wall flickered to life. The room held its breath as grainy footage played. Courthouse steps, Marcus in a simple suit, Aaliyah in a cream dress, both laughing as they kissed. Rachel and James stood nearby, clapping. The date stamp matched the certificate. The crowd's defiance crumbled, faces paling, eyes darting to Aaliyah, who watched the footage with a quiet ache in her gaze. Vanessa stood, her voice trembling with fury. "This is a setup. You planned this, didn't you? Tricking us into looking bad. You're nobody. Marcus would never marry someone like you." Her words stung, but Aaliyah's face didn't change. She let Vanessa's anger hang, unanswered. Then she spoke, her voice colder now, sharp enough to cut. "You're right about one thing. This was planned. Not to trick you, but to test you. To see if any of you cared enough to ask who I was before you mocked me. To see if you'd honour Marcus's memory or just claw for his wealth." She stepped closer to the crowd, her presence filling the room. "You failed. All of you." Derek laughed, nervous now. "Test? What is this? A reality show? Come on, you can't be serious." But his voice faltered as Aaliyah's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. She reached into her bag, pulling out a small remote. "Marcus isn't dead," she said, each word deliberate. "He's alive, and he's been watching you this whole time." She pressed the remote, and a monitor on the wall clicked on. There, in a softly lit room, sat Marcus Caldwell, 42, lean, with dark hair flecked with grey, his hazel eyes sharp as ever. He leaned back in a chair, his expression calm but resolute, like a judge weighing hearts. The camera feed was live, the timestamp ticking in the corner. April 15th, 2025, 10:35 a.m. The room exploded in gasps, shouts, disbelief. Victor stumbled back, his tie askew. Naya dropped her phone, the screen shattering on the marble. Leonard's wife clutched his arm, whispering, "No, it can't be." Evelyn's diamond seemed to choke her, her hand frozen mid-gesture. Marcus's voice came through the monitor, low and resonant. "You thought I was gone. You thought this was your chance to carve up my life like a prize. But I've been here, watching, listening in. Every word, every sneer, every lie." His gaze shifted, as if looking through the camera at Aaliyah. "She warned me you'd show your true colours. She was right." Aaliyah's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. She turned to the crowd, her voice steady. Marcus's yacht didn't sink. It was a cover, a way to step back, to see who'd stay loyal and who'd turn. You all rushed here, dressed in your finest, ready to claim what wasn't yours. But this was never about money, it was about truth. The Grand Hall's doors opened, and Marcus walked in. He was real, solid, his presence like a storm breaking. His suit was simple, no tie, his shoes worn from travel. The crowd parted as he crossed the room, their whispers fading, their bravado gone. He stopped beside Aaliyah, his hand brushing hers, a quiet anchor. She looked up at him, her eyes softening for the first time, and he nodded, a silent agreement. He faced the room, his voice carrying without effort. Aaliyah designed this, the will, the reading, the cameras, all of it. She wanted to know who you were when you thought no one was watching. Who'd respect a stranger, who'd show kindness, who'd care about me, not my fortune. He paused, his eyes sweeping the crowd, pinning each one. "Not one of you passed." Marcus's eyes locked onto Victor, the man who'd mocked Aaliyah first, his silver tie now a garish noose. "You called my wife a housekeeper," Marcus said, his voice low but lethal, each word slicing through the silence. "You laughed while she stood there alone, letting you reveal yourselves. Did you think I wouldn't see?" Victor shrank, his confidence gone, his hands fumbling with his tie as if it could save him. The crowd watched, frozen, as Marcus stepped closer, his presence towering. "You're not family, Victor. You're a leech, and I'm done with you." A guard appeared at Victor's side, his grip firm, and as Victor was led out, his protest drowned in the echo of Marcus's words. The room felt lighter, justice a tangible force, Aaliyah's honour restored with every step of Victor's disgrace. Victor tried to speak, his voice cracking. "Marcus, come on, we didn't know, she didn't say anything." Marcus's gaze snapped to him, cold and final. She shouldn't have had to. You saw a woman you didn't recognize and your first instinct was to tear her down. That's not loyalty. Nia stepped forward, desperate now. We're sorry, okay? We didn't mean it. Tell her, Marcus. Tell her to forgive us. Her eyes darted to Aaliyah, pleading, but Aaliyah's face was stone, her silence louder than any accusation. Marcus shook his head. It's not about forgiveness. It's about consequences. He nodded to Harper, who pulled out another document. This is an addendum to the will, effective immediately. Anyone who insulted Aaliyah today, named in security footage, audio logs or witness accounts, is cut off. No shares, no properties, no contact, you're done. Harper began reading names, his voice a gavel. Victor Caldwell, Vanessa Caldwell, Nia Harris, Leonard Brooks, Evelyn Tate, Derek Wells. Each name landed like a whip, faces crumpling, protests rising, then dying as security guards moved in. Victor shouted, "You can't do this, I'm blood!" But a guard took his arm, leading him toward the doors. Vanessa followed, her sapphire dress trailing, her sobs echoing. Nia clutched her cracked phone, whispering, "This can't be happening," as she was escorted out. Nia's face drained of colour as Marcus turned to her, his gaze cutting through her. "You turned my wife into a meme," he said, his voice steady but searing, "thinking your followers would applaud you. But lies don't last, Nia." He nodded to Harper, who tapped his laptop, and Nia's phone buzzed violently in her hand. Her social media accounts, her empire of influence, were collapsing live. Posts deleted, followers dropping by the thousands, sponsors cutting ties with brutal efficiency. "You're banned from my companies, my properties, my life," Marcus said as a guard took her arm, her cracked phone slipping to the floor. The crowd's gasps were a chorus of awe, the room electric with the thrill of justice. Aaliyah's dignity restored as Nia's digital throne crumbled, her cruelty to Aaliyah now her undoing. Leonard's wife tried to argue, her sapphires flashing, but Marcus cut her off. "You called my wife unrefined. You don't get to stay." They left, heads bowed, the crowd thinning as guards cleared the room. Evelyn's diamonds crunched underfoot, a fitting end to her pride. When the doors closed, only a handful remained. 3 people who'd stayed silent, who hadn't laughed or sneered. Rachel Morgan, the nurse from the wedding video, now older, her eyes wet with relief. James Carter, the librarian, who'd nodded to Aaliyah when she entered, recognizing her quietly. And Lena, a gardener who'd offered Aaliyah a seat before the reading, no questions asked. Marcus turned to them, his voice softer now. "You saw her. You didn't judge. That's what family means." He looked at Aaliyah, his hand finding hers again. "You were right about all of it." Aaliyah's gaze lingered on the empty chairs, the spilled Prosecco, the scattered diamonds. "I didn't want to be right," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I wanted them to be better." She faced the 3 who remained, her eyes warm now. "Thank you for seeing me." Marcus squeezed her hand, his voice low, for her alone. "You're more than they'll ever understand." She smiled, small but real, and leaned into him, her cardigan brushing his sleeve. The room was quiet now, the vultures gone, the truth laid bare. Aaliyah didn't need the money, the estate, the empire. She'd never wanted it. She'd wanted Marcus, alive, whole hers, and now, with the world stripped down to its core, they stood together, unshaken. The ridges outside glowed emerald under the April sky, and the cameras blinked off, their work done. If this story hit you hard, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and hit that subscribe button for more stories that cut deep and lift high. Your support keeps the truth alive.